Chapter 1. The Stolen Bride. The wedding dress had been meant for another. Isolde stood motionless in the candlelit chamber, her fingers trembling against the ivory silk that clung to her frame, too tight at the waist, too long at the hem. It had been tailored for Vivienne, her stepsister, whose curves were softer, whose presence commanded rooms with laughter and light. But Vivienne had fled 3 nights ago, vanishing into the autumn fog with a mortal lover, leaving behind only a tearful letter and a family drowning in debt. And so, the burden had fallen to Isolde. "Stop fidgeting," her stepmother hissed, yanking the veil over Isolde's dark hair with such force that pins bit into her scalp. "You should be grateful. Lord Valerian could have demanded blood price for this insult. Instead, he agreed to take you." Isolde said nothing. Gratitude felt like ash in her mouth. She had seen Lord Valerian only once, 2 years prior, when he had arrived at their crumbling estate to formalize the betrothal with Vivienne. He had stood in the shadow of the doorway, tall and unnervingly still, his pale face beautiful in the way of marble saints, cold, perfect, untouchable. His eyes, dark as midwinter nights, had swept over Vivienne with polite indifference before drifting, for just a heartbeat, to Isolde hovering at the edge of the room. She had felt pinned beneath that gaze, seen. Then he had looked away, and she had convinced herself it meant nothing. "He is cruel," Vivienne had whispered to her later, shuddering. "They say he has killed men for speaking his name without permission, that he keeps no servants who live past 30. That his castle is filled with the bones of those who displeased him." Isolde had dismissed it as dramatics. Vivienne always craved attention, even through fear. But now, descending the narrow staircase toward the chapel, Isolde wondered if her stepsister had been wiser than she knew. The ceremony was held at midnight. The chapel was small, old, its stone walls slick with damp and shadow. No guests had been invited. Only her stepmother and father stood witness, their faces tight with relief that their debts would be paid, their noble name preserved. The priest looked ill, his hand shaking as he opened the leather-bound book of vows, and at the altar, waiting, stood Lord Valerian Ashford. He was dressed in black, severe and elegant, his coat embroidered with silver thread that caught the candlelight like spider silk. His hair, pale as winter frost, framed a face that might have been carved by a master sculptor, sharp cheekbones, a mouth too perfectly shaped to be entirely human. He did not smile, he did not move, but when Isolde reached the altar, his eyes found hers. They were fathomless, ancient, and for a moment something flickered in their depths. Recognition, or perhaps hunger. "Miss Isolde Greymore," he said quietly, his voice smooth as velvet drawn over stone. "You are aware of the terms?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. "You will speak," he commanded, though his tone remained soft. "I will have your consent, freely given." Her stepmother inhaled sharply behind her, but Isolde lifted her chin. "I am aware. I consent." A pause. Then, almost too quietly to hear, "Liar." Her breath caught, but before she could respond, he extended his hand, gloved in black leather, and waited. Isolde placed her trembling fingers in his. His grip was cold, unyielding, and yet not unkind. The priest rushed through the vows as though demons nipped at his heels. Isolde repeated the words mechanically, her voice hollow in the stone chamber. When the priest prompted Lord Valerian, he spoke the binding words with a precision that made them sound like an incantation, each syllable weighted with power. "By blood and bone, by night eternal, I claim you." The candles guttered, the air grew heavy, and then the priest pronounced them bound, and it was done. Her stepmother exhaled audibly. Her father muttered something about wine. But Lord Valerian did not release her hand. Instead, he turned to face her fully, his expression unreadable. You will come with me now, he said. Now? Isolde's voice cracked. There is nothing for you here. It was not a question. His gaze flicked briefly to her stepmother, and the woman actually stepped back, fear bright in her eyes. He was right. There was nothing. Isolde nodded. Within the hour, she was seated in a black carriage that smelled of leather and something faintly sweet, like decayed roses. Lord Valerian sat across from her, silent, his eyes fixed on the darkness beyond the window. The horses moved soundlessly through the fog-laden road, and Isolde realized with creeping unease that she could not hear their hooves. "Why did you agree?" she asked finally, her voice barely above a whisper. He did not look at her. "To what?" "To take me instead of Vivian. You could have refused, demanded recompense." A long silence. Then, "Your stepsister was never meant to be my bride." Isolde's heart stumbled. "What?" But he said nothing more, and the carriage rolled on into the night. When they arrived at Ashford Hall, Isolde's breath stopped. The castle rose from the moors like a creature of stone and shadow, its towers clawing at the moonless sky. Ivy strangled its walls. No lights burned in its windows. It looked less like a home and more like a mausoleum. Lord Valerian descended first, then offered his hand once more. This time, when she took it, she felt the coldness seep through her glove, into her skin, into her very bones. "Welcome," he said quietly, his eyes finally meeting hers again, "to your new eternity." And as the heavy doors groaned open behind him, Isolde saw, just for an instant, something flicker across his face, something raw and desperate and unbearably old. Then it was gone, and he was stone once more. "Come, wife," he said, "there is much you do not yet understand." The doors swallowed them whole. Chapter 2. The Bride Who Was Not Forgotten. Ashford Hall was a labyrinth of silence. Isolde followed Lord Valerian through corridors that seemed to stretch into infinity, lit only by flickering sconces that cast dancing shadows against portraits of stern-faced ancestors. Their eyes seemed to follow her, judging, knowing. The air was cold enough to see her breath, and beneath the scent of old stone and beeswax, there lingered something else, something metallic and faintly sweet. Blood, perhaps, or death. Lord Valerian did not speak. His footsteps made no sound against the marble floors, and Isolde found herself watching the way he moved, too fluid, too graceful, inhuman. The rumors, it seemed, had not been exaggerations. He stopped before a set of double doors carved with intricate patterns, roses and thorns, intertwined so tightly it was impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. "Your chambers," he said, pushing them open. The room beyond stole what little breath Isolde had left. It was vast, draped in deep burgundy and gold, dominated by a canopied bed large enough to sleep 5. But what caught her attention was not the opulence. It was the care. Fresh roses stood in crystal vases. The fire in the hearth burned warm and steady. Books lined the shelves, their spines worn with reading. And on the vanity sat a silver brush, its handle engraved with a name. Isolde. Her name, not Vivian's. She turned slowly to face him. "I don't understand." Lord Valerian stood in the doorway, his expression carefully neutral, but his hands, she noticed, were clenched at his sides. "These chambers have been prepared for some time," he said. "For me?" "Yes." "But the betrothal was arranged for Vivian 2 years ago." "Yes." "Then why?" "Because I knew," he interrupted quietly, his dark eyes finally meeting hers with an intensity that made her step back. "That she would not be the one standing at that altar." Isolde's pulse hammered in her throat. "You knew she would flee?" A pause. Then, "I knew that you would come." The words hung between them like a confession. "That's impossible," Isolde whispered. "You couldn't have—" "Sleep," he said abruptly, turning away. We will speak in the evening. Evening? It's already— I do not wake with the sun, Miss Graymore. Neither will you, in time. He hesitated at the threshold, his back to her. There is a bell pull by your bed. If you require anything, ring it. Someone will come. Will you come? She hadn't meant to ask. The question slipped out, born of fear and confusion and something else she couldn't name. Lord Valerian went utterly still. When he finally spoke, his voice was lower, rougher than before. No, it is not yet safe for me to be alone with you after dark. And then he was gone, the doors closing behind him with a soft final click. Isolde stood frozen, her mind racing. Not yet safe. What did that mean? She should have been terrified. She should have run to the windows, tested the locks, searched for escape. Instead, she found herself drawn to the vanity, to the silver brush with her name etched into its handle. She picked it up with trembling fingers, feeling the weight of it, the craftsmanship. This was no hasty addition. This had been made with intention, with care, with knowledge. How long had these chambers waited for her? Sleep did not come easily. When it finally took her, Isolde's dreams were strange and fragmented. Flashes of a ballroom she'd never seen, filled with dancers in old-fashioned dress. A man standing in the shadows, watching her. Waiting. Always waiting. She woke to darkness. For a disorienting moment, Isolde couldn't remember where she was. Then memory crashed back. The wedding, the carriage, the castle of shadows. Her husband. A soft knock at the door made her start. Come in, she called, pulling the blankets higher. The door opened to reveal a young woman in a simple gray dress, her expression carefully blank. She carried a tray of food, bread, cheese, fruit, wine, and set it on the table near the hearth without meeting Isolde's eyes. Lord Valerian requests your presence in the library after you've eaten, my lady, the girl said quietly. Thank you. What's your name? The girl hesitated. Mara, my lady. How long have you served here, Mara? 3 years, my lady. Isolde thought of Vivienna's words. No servants who live past 30. Are you treated well? Mara's eyes finally lifted, and in them, Isolde saw something unexpected. Pity. Better than most would believe, Mara said softly. Lord Valerian is not the monster they say. He is simply careful. Careful of what? But Mara only shook her head and curtsied. Eat, my lady. He does not like to be kept waiting. The library was 3 floors below, accessible by a spiral staircase that seemed carved from a single piece of black stone. Isolde descended slowly, her hand trailing along the wall for balance, until she emerged into a room that stole her breath for the second time that night. Books. Thousands of them. Tens of thousands, perhaps, rising from floor to vaulted ceiling on shelves that seemed to defy architecture. Ladders on rails provided access to the higher reaches, and the scent of old paper and leather filled the air like incense. And in the center, seated in a high-backed chair before the fire, was Lord Valerian. He did not rise when she entered. He simply watched her approach, his eyes reflecting the firelight like a cat's. Sit, he said, gesturing to the chair opposite. Isolde obeyed, acutely aware of the space between them. Too close, yet somehow not close enough. You have questions, he said. It was not a question. Many. Ask. She drew a breath. Why did you marry me? Lord Valerian's expression did not change, but something flickered in the depths of his eyes, something ancient and wounded. Because, he said quietly, I have waited 273 years for you to be born. The fire crackled. The world tilted. What? Isolde breathed. He leaned forward slowly, his gaze holding hers with terrible intensity. You, Isolde Graymore, are not a replacement bride. You are not second choice. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. You are the only choice I have ever made, the only soul I have ever loved. That's impossible. We've never. In this life, he interrupted, we have not. But you have lived before, and in every lifetime I have found you. Her hands gripped the arms of the chair. You're insane. Perhaps. He rose then, moving toward her with that unnatural grace. But you will remember. In time, you always do. He stopped just before her, close enough that she could feel the cold radiating from his body. And when you do, he whispered, you will understand why I could never let you go. Chapter 3. Echoes of a Forgotten Lifetime. Isolde's world had narrowed to the space between one breath and the next. Lord Valerian stood before her, close enough that she could see the inhuman stillness of his chest. No rise, no fall. He did not breathe. And yet his eyes were alive with something that burned beneath the surface, something desperate and restrained. I don't believe you, she whispered, though her voice trembled. I know. He stepped back, giving her air, though the loss of his proximity felt strangely like abandonment. Belief will come, or it will not. But the truth remains unchanged. If what you say is real, if I've lived before, why don't I remember? Lord Valerian turned toward the fire, his profile sharp in the flickering light. Death severs the thread. Each time you are reborn, you begin again, unmade and unknowing. His hands clasped behind his back. I have watched you grow from infancy to womanhood 7 times now. I have learned patience. 7 times. The number lodged in Isolde's chest like a stone. Then Vivian was never meant for me, he confirmed. When your father approached me 2 years ago, offering his stepdaughter's hand to settle his debts, I agreed. But only because I knew where the true contract would lead. You wanted her to flee. I encouraged it. His voice held no remorse. I paid her lover handsomely to take her far from here. I ensured your family would have no choice but to offer you instead. Isolde stood abruptly, anger flaring hot in her veins. You manipulated everything, my family's ruin, my sister's escape. She is not your sister, Valerian said sharply, turning to face her. She shares no blood with you, and your family cared nothing for you until you became useful. The truth of it struck like a blow. Isolde had always been the forgotten daughter, the child of her father's first wife, the wife he'd loved and lost. Her stepmother had tolerated her existence, nothing more. Vivian had treated her like a servant. But that did not excuse. You had no right. I had every right, Valerian countered, his voice dropping to something dangerous. You are mine, Isolde. You have been mine since the first life, when you gave yourself to me willingly, when you chose me. I don't remember that. Not yet. The certainty in his voice was infuriating. Isolde turned away, her hands shaking. If I truly loved you once, why would fate keep tearing us apart? Silence. When she looked back, Valerian's expression had shifted into something bleak. Because I made a choice, he said quietly. Long ago, when you first died in my arms, I could not bear it. I sought out forbidden magic, blood rituals older than empires. I bound your soul to mine, ensured that you would be reborn again and again. His jaw tightened. But magic demands balance. You return, yes. But never with memory, never with the certainty that made you unafraid of me. So I'm cursed because you couldn't let me go. Yes. The admission hung between them, raw and irrefutable. Isolde sank back into the chair, her mind reeling. Part of her wanted to call him mad, to flee this castle of shadows and never look back. But another part, a part she didn't understand, recognized something in his voice, a grief so old it had calcified into permanence. What was my name? She asked quietly. In the first life? Valerian's eyes closed briefly. Elaine. And how did we meet? You were a healer's daughter. I was already centuries old, already cursed with this existence. He moved to the window, staring out at the darkness. I came to your village hunting a rogue vampire who had been killing indiscriminately. You found me at dawn, wounded and weak, and instead of driving a stake through my heart, you hid me, nursed me. Why would I do that? Because you saw past the monster. His voice softened. You always have. Isolde's throat tightened. What happened to her? To Elaine? She died at 32. Fever took her. Valerian's reflection in the glass looked like a ghost. I was away, hunting. By the time I returned, she was already cold. And the others? Different deaths. Different circumstances, but always mortal, always fragile. He turned back to her, and for the first time she saw the weight of centuries in his eyes. I have held you as you died of plague, of childbirth, of violence. Once you drowned saving a child from a river. Another time, you simply grew old. Though you had refused my offer to turn you. Turn me? Into what I am. His gaze held hers, immortal, unchanging. Every life I have offered. Every life you have refused. You said you would not forsake your humanity, even for eternity with me. The tragedy of it struck Isolde like a physical blow. To love someone across lifetimes, only to lose them again and again, and to know the solution existed, but be denied. And this time, she whispered, will you ask again? Valerian was silent for a long moment. No, he finally said. I have learned. This time I will not ask. I will not beg. I will simply have what time you grant me. Something in his resignation broke her heart. I don't remember you, Isolde said quietly. I don't remember loving you, but She hesitated, searching for words. I don't fear you the way I should. And when you speak of these things, some part of me feels sorrow, as though I'm mourning something I never knew I'd lost. Valerian's expression transformed, hope and pain warring across his features. That is enough, he said hoarsely. For now, that is enough. He crossed the distance between them in a heartbeat, kneeling before her chair so their eyes were level. This close, Isolde could see the faint tracery of veins beneath his pale skin, the impossible beauty of his face. I will not force you, he said. I will not compel you or trap you. If you wish to leave Ashford Hall, I will arrange it. You will be provided for, protected, free. And you? His smile was sad. I will wait, as I always have. Perhaps in the next life, you will remember sooner. Isolde reached out slowly, her hand hovering near his face. She didn't know why she did it, didn't understand the impulse. But when her fingers finally touched his cheek, Valerian's eyes closed as though she'd blessed him. Stay, he whispered. Just a little while, please. And despite everything, despite logic and fear and reason, Isolde did not pull away. Chapter 4. The Weight of Centuries. Isolde did not sleep that night. After leaving the library, after Valerian had pulled away from her touch as though it burned him, after he'd murmured something about dawn approaching and disappeared into the shadows, she had returned to her chambers with her mind in chaos. She sat by the window, watching the sky slowly lighten from black to gray, replaying every word he'd spoken. 7 lifetimes. It should have sounded like madness. It should have sent her running. Instead, she found herself tracing the silver brush handle again, wondering about the woman who had owned it before. Had there been others? Other Isoldes? Other versions of Elaine, sitting in this very room, holding this very object? And if she had loved him before? If she had chosen him, again and again, What did that say about the person she was now? The question haunted her. Mara appeared at midday with food, her expression carefully neutral as always, but when Isolde asked about Lord Valerian, the girl's mask slipped. He does not wake until sunset, my lady. It is his nature. Because he's a vampire. Mara's eyes widened slightly. He told you? Yes. A pause. Then, quietly. Most do not believe it, even when shown proof. What proof? Isolde asked, but Mara only shook her head. That is for the master to share, my lady. Not me. She left before Isolde could press further. The day stretched endlessly. Isolde explored her chambers, finding a wardrobe filled with gowns in deep jewel tones, emerald, sapphire, ruby, all tailored to her measurements. How long had they waited here? How many years had Valerian prepared for her arrival? In a drawer, she found a journal. The leather was worn, the pages yellowed, and when she opened it, her breath caught. The handwriting was not hers, but the name signed at the front was Isolde Catherine Greymore, 1823, this lifetime, her lifetime. But she had never kept a journal. With trembling hands, she read the first entry. Father says I must not speak of the dreams anymore. He says they are improper, that I am too old for such fancies. But I cannot stop them. Every night I see him, the man in the shadows, watching me with eyes like winter midnight. He never speaks. He only waits. And I feel such longing, it is almost unbearable. Who is he? Why does he haunt me so? Isolde's hands shook. She flipped forward, scanning entries. I met Vivian's betrothed today. Father was so pleased to have secured such a powerful match, though Vivian seems frightened. But when Lord Valerian looked at me, just once, just for a moment, I knew. It was him. The man from my dreams. I am going mad. I must be. Because I wanted to run to him, to ask if he knows me, if he dreams of me as I dream of him. But I am no one, and he has promised to another. The journal slipped from her fingers. She had known. Some part of her had always known. When sunset came, Isolde was already in the library, waiting. Valerian appeared as though conjured from shadow itself, stepping through the doorway with that preternatural silence. He stopped when he saw her, surprise flickering across his features. You found the journal, he said quietly. You knew I kept it. You always keep journals, in every life. He moved closer, his gaze searching her face. Though you rarely remember writing them. Isolde held up the worn book. I wrote about you, about dreams. Yes. Have I always dreamed of you? Valerian's expression grew haunted. Since you were 16, the age you were when we first met, in that first life, something in your soul remembers, even when your mind does not. That's why I never feared you, Isolde breathed. At the altar, in the carriage, I should have been terrified, but I wasn't. No, he agreed softly. You never are, not truly. She stood, clutching the journal like a lifeline. Show me. Show you what? Proof. Your nature. Everything. Her voice steadied. If I'm meant to believe this, I need to see. Valerian studied her for a long moment, something like resignation settling over his features. Then he nodded. Come. He led her deeper into the castle, down corridors she hadn't yet explored, until they reached a heavy iron door bound with chains. With casual strength that should have been impossible, Valerian pulled it open. Beyond lay a crypt. Stone sarcophagi lined the walls, each carved with names and dates spanning centuries. But at the center stood something else, a raised platform bearing a simple coffin of dark wood. This is where I sleep, Valerian said. Where I must sleep, when the sun rises, the curse of my kind. Isolde approached slowly, her heart hammering. The coffin was lined with red silk, pristine and waiting. And the others? She gestured to the sarcophagi. My family. Long dead. His voice was hollow. I am the last of House Ashford, the last of my bloodline. She turned to face him. Show me your true nature. Isolde. Please. He closed his eyes briefly. Then, with deliberate slowness, he opened them. The dark irises had bled to crimson, glowing faintly in the crypt's dimness. And when he opened his mouth, she saw the fangs. Elegant, sharp, undeniable. Isolde should have screamed, should have run. Instead, she stepped closer. Does it hurt? She whispered. Being what you are? Every moment of every century. His voice was rough, strained. Except when you were with me. Those brief years in each life, they were the only peace I've known. Tears pricked Isolde's eyes. I'm sorry. Do not apologize for dying. Valerian's hand lifted, hovering near her face but not touching. Do not apologize for being mortal. It is I who am cursed, not you. But you cursed me too, she said. By binding my soul to yours, I can never truly be free, can I? His hand fell. No. And you won't release me. I cannot. The magic is too old, too deep. It would destroy us both. Isolde looked at him, truly looked. At the ancient sorrow in his eyes, the loneliness that had carved itself into his very bones. He was a creature of darkness. Yes. A predator, yes. But he was also something else. Hers. And she was his. Even if she couldn't remember why. Then teach me, she said quietly. If I cannot escape this, if we are bound, teach me who I was. Help me understand what I've forgotten. Valerian's expression transformed into something raw and grateful and unbearably fragile. As you wish, he whispered. And in the darkness of the crypt, surrounded by centuries of death, something began to bloom between them. Something that might have been hope. Chapter 5. Blood and Memory. The days began to blur together in a strange, dreamlike rhythm. Isolde woke at sunset now, her body adjusting to Valerian's nocturnal existence. They shared meals, though she noticed he never ate, only watched her with an intensity that should have been unsettling. They walked the castle grounds in the moonlight, and he told her stories of the lives she'd lived before. Catherine, the merchant's daughter, who had died in childbirth at 28. Isabel, a nun who had broken her vows for him and later succumbed to plague. Elena, a poet who had drowned herself when madness took her mind. Each name, each life, felt like a phantom limb, something she should remember but couldn't. Why do I always have similar names? She asked one evening as they sat in the conservatory, surrounded by night-blooming flowers. I don't know, Valerian admitted. Perhaps some echo of the original remains. Or perhaps I subconsciously seek out those names, recognizing you in them. Have you ever missed me? Walked past me unknowing? Twice. His voice was low. Once you were born in India. I did not find you until you were 40, married with children. You did not remember me, and I could not bring myself to disrupt your happiness. He paused. You died at 63, peacefully, surrounded by your family. I was not one of them. The pain in his admission made Isolde's chest ache. And the second? You were stillborn. The words were barely audible. I felt your soul's presence briefly then. Nothing. I waited 27 years for your next rebirth. Isolde reached across the space between them, her hand covering his where it rested on the stone bench. His skin was cold, always cold, but he did not pull away. I'm here now, she said quietly. For now. Valerian. Do not make promises, Isolde. His eyes met hers, crimson flickering at the edges. Do not tell me forever when you mean years. I have heard it before, and it only makes the ending worse. She wanted to argue, but she had no right to. She didn't remember loving him, didn't remember choosing him. How could she promise what she didn't feel? The question kept her awake long after she should have been sleeping. It was Mara who finally provided the push Isolde needed. "My lady," the servant said one evening as she braided Isolde's hair. "May I speak plainly?" "Of course." "You are afraid?" Isolde met Mara's eyes in the mirror. "Of your master?" "Of yourself." Mara's hands moved deftly through her hair. "I have served Lord Valerian for 3 years. I have seen him wait, watch, deny himself even the smallest comfort because he fears pushing you away." She secured the braid with a ribbon. "But you are not afraid of him. You are afraid of what it means if you fall in love with him again." The truth of it struck deep. "How can I love someone I don't remember?" Isolde whispered. "The same way you love anything," Mara said simply, "by choosing to." That night, Isolde asked Valerian to show her his world. "My world?" He looked up from the book he'd been reading, surprise evident. "You've told me about my past lives, but I know nothing of yours. What were you before this?" For a long moment she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he closed the book carefully, setting it aside. "I was the third son of a duke," he said. 1547. England was in turmoil, the throne uncertain. My eldest brother would inherit. The second entered the church. I was expendable. So what did you do? I became a soldier, fought in wars I didn't believe in, killed men whose names I never learned. His gaze grew distant. I was good at it. Too good. And when I was 28, my skill caught the attention of something old and hungry. A vampire. Yes. She was beautiful, terrible. She offered me eternity, power, freedom from mortal concerns. His mouth twisted bitterly. I was arrogant enough to accept. What happened to her? I killed her. The admission was flat, emotionless. 50 years later, when I understood what she'd truly made me, what I would become. Isolde drew a sharp breath. Did you love her? No. I hated her. And I hated myself more for what I'd become. He finally looked at Isolde and his eyes were haunted. Until I met Elaine. She was the first person in a century who looked at me and saw something worth saving. Is that why you loved her? No. Valerian stood, moving to the window. I loved her because she was kind when the world was cruel. Because she laughed at my terrible jests and cried when I told her of my sins and forgave me anyway. His voice dropped. I loved her because she made me want to be more than the monster I'd become. And me? Isolde asked quietly. Am I her? You are her soul, her essence. He turned back to her. But you are also yourself. Each life shapes you differently. You are not identical to Elaine any more than you are identical to Catherine or Elena. Then who am I to you? Everything. The word hung between them. Absolute. Isolde stood, crossing to where he stood by the window. This close, she could see the careful control in every line of his body, the way he held himself back even now. I want to remember, she said. Isolde, is there a way? Some magic? Some ritual? There is one way. His jaw tightened. But I will not do it. Tell me. Blood. The word was heavy with meaning. If I gave you my blood, if you drank from me, the bond might trigger your soul's memory, but it would also begin your transformation. You would be on the path to becoming what I am. Isolde's heart raced. And you won't do it because I've always refused. Yes. She looked at him, truly looked. At the way he held himself apart, denied himself what he wanted because he loved her enough to let her remain human. To let her die again and again, rather than force her into the darkness. It was the most profound act of love she'd ever witnessed. And it broke something open inside her. Valerian, she whispered. What if I asked you to? His eyes flashed crimson. Do not. Why? Because I would not be able to refuse you, he said roughly, and I have spent centuries protecting you from me. Do not ask me to fail now. Isolde reached up, her hand cupping his cold cheek. What if I don't want to be protected anymore? His control shattered. He caught her wrist, his grip gentle but unyielding. You don't know what you're asking. Then show me. And before he could protest, before logic could intervene, Isolde pulled his hand to her mouth and pressed her lips to his palm. The effect was instantaneous. Valerian's eyes blazed crimson, his fangs descending fully. He pulled her against him with inhuman speed, his face buried in her hair, his body trembling with restraint. Isolde, he groaned. Stop. Please. But she didn't, because for the first time since arriving at Ashford Hall, she felt something beyond confusion. She felt certain. Chapter 6. The first taste of darkness. Valerian held her as though she were made of glass and flame both, something precious and dangerous, capable of destroying him with a single wrong move. We cannot, he whispered against her hair, though his arms remained locked around her. Isolde, I am barely controlled as it is. If you push, I trust you. You shouldn't. His voice was anguished. You don't remember the last time. You don't remember what happened when... He stopped abruptly, pulling back. His eyes were still crimson, his fangs visible, but his expression had shuddered into something guarded. What happened? Isolde demanded. Tell me. No. Valerian. Some memories are mine to bear alone. He released her, stepping back to put necessary distance between them. Go to your chambers, please. I don't want to. That is not a request, wife. The title held an edge she hadn't heard before. Command, territory, possession. Go. Now. Before I do something we will both regret. Isolde wanted to argue, but the tremor in his hands, the way his jaw clenched with visible effort, told her he was closer to the edge than she'd realized. She went, but sleep didn't come. She lay in the vast bed, staring at the canopy above, replaying the moment she'd kissed his palm. The way he'd trembled. The way he'd held her as though she were the only real thing in an eternity of shadows. He'd wanted her. She'd felt it in the tension of his body, the desperation in his grip. So why did he pull away? The answer came at dawn. Isolde woke to find Mara in her chambers, white-faced and urgent. My lady, you must come, quickly. What's wrong? It's Lord Valerian, he's... Mara's voice broke. Please, just come. Isolde threw on a robe and followed Mara down the corridors, her heart hammering. They descended to the crypt, and what she saw stopped her cold. Valerian was chained to the wall. Silver chains, specifically, wrapped around his wrists and throat. His skin, where they touched, was burned, blistered, and he hung suspended with his head bowed, unconscious or close to it. What happened? Isolde breathed. He did this to himself, my lady. Mara's voice was shaking. After you left him last night, he sent for me, gave me the key, and ordered me to lock him here until sunset today. Why? Because he cannot trust himself around you. The words hit like a physical blow. Isolde approached slowly, her eyes fixed on Valerian's burned flesh. The silver was eating through his skin, and she could see bone beneath in places. This is agony for him, she whispered. Yes, my lady, but he said it was preferable to the alternative. Which is? Mara's eyes met hers. Losing control, biting you, possibly killing you in his bloodlust. Isolde's hands clenched into fists. Release him. I cannot. He made me swear. I don't care. Isolde turned to face Mara fully. Give me the key. Now. My lady. He is hurting himself to protect me. I won't allow it. Her voice shook with fury and grief. Give me the key, Mara, or I will tear this castle apart to find it. Mara hesitated, then slowly withdrew a small silver key from her pocket. He will be angry. Let him be angry. Isolde snatched the key. Leave us. My lady, if he wakes while you're here. I said leave. Mara fled. Isolde turned back to Valerian, her hands shaking as she approached the chains. The lock mechanism was intricate, designed to be difficult to open even with the key. It took her several tries, but finally the chains loosened. The moment they fell away, Valerian collapsed. Isolde caught him, or tried to. He was far heavier than she expected, his body cold and limp. She managed to lower him to the stone floor, cradling his head in her lap. Valerian, she whispered, touching his face. The burns from the silver were already beginning to heal, but slowly, so slowly. Wake up, please. His eyes snapped open. Crimson, holy crimson. No trace of dark iris remained, and his fangs were bared. Isolde froze as Valerian's hand shot up, gripping her wrist with bruising force. His gaze locked on the pulse point at her throat, and she felt the hunger radiating from him like heat from a forge. You shouldn't be here, he rasped. I know. I can hear your heart. Smell your blood. His grip tightened. Isolde, run. No. I will hurt you. Then hurt me. She met his inhuman gaze without flinching. If that's the price of stopping you from torturing yourself, I'll pay it. Something flickered in those crimson eyes, anguish, longing, desperation. You don't understand, he groaned. In the last life, I lost control. I bit you, and I couldn't stop. You nearly died. And when you woke, you looked at me with such fear. His voice broke. I swore I would never let that happen again. Isolde's throat tightened. But I didn't die. You should have. And you would have, if I hadn't stopped myself in time. He closed his eyes. It took every shred of will I possessed, and it still wasn't enough. I had to chain myself then too. Your final weeks. I spent locked in this crypt because I couldn't trust myself near you. So you spent your last days with me alone. Yes? And when I died, you weren't there. His silence was answer enough. Isolde understood now. The guilt that haunted him wasn't just about making her immortal. It was about failing her in that last life. About his hunger becoming more important than her comfort in her final days. That won't happen this time, she said firmly. You cannot know. Because I'm offering freely. She shifted, tilting her head to expose her throat. If you need blood, take it, before the hunger drives you mad. Isolde, you've suffered centuries for me. Let me do this one thing for you. Valerian's entire body went rigid. If I start, I may not stop. You will. How can you be certain? She touched his face gently. Because you love me. In every life, you've loved me more than your hunger. This time won't be different. For a long moment, Valerian simply stared at her, war raging behind his eyes. Then, slowly, with infinite care, he lowered his mouth to her throat. His breath was cold against her skin. His fangs grazed her pulse point, and Isolde's heart hammered so loudly she was certain he could hear nothing else. Forgive me, he whispered. And then he bit. The pain was sharp, bright, but brief. It melted almost immediately into something else, something warm and languid and strangely intimate. She felt him drinking, felt her blood flowing into him, and with it came a rush of sensation, images, memories, not hers, his. 1,000 moments across centuries, watching her laugh, watching her sleep, holding her as she died. The weight of his love pressed against her mind like an ocean, vast and bottomless and absolute. And beneath it all, a whisper. I remember you. Chapter 7. When Souls Recognize Each Other. Isolde gasped as the visions flooded through her. She was standing in a village square, herb basket in hand. A man in dark clothing approached, wounded and desperate. "Please," he whispered. "Dawn is coming, please." And she had helped him. Later, weeks later, she'd found him in the forest. "Why do you keep returning?" she'd asked. "Because you are the only light I've known in 200 years. Valerian pulled back from her throat with a harsh sound, his eyes wide with shock. "You're seeing them. The memories." "Yes," Isolde breathed. The room spun slightly, but she didn't care. "How?" "The blood bond. It's stronger than I thought." He pressed his hand to the bite mark, and she felt the flesh begin to knit together beneath his palm. "What did you see?" "Elaine, the first life." Her voice was hoarse. I saw myself finding you, choosing you." Valerian's expression crumpled. "Isolde. And I saw other things, other lives." She gripped his shoulders. "Catherine teaching you to dance. Isabel praying with you in a hidden chapel. Elena reading you her poetry." "Stop. Why? They're beautiful." Tears streamed down her face. "Valerian, you've loved me so much. How do you bear it? How do you survive losing me again and again?" "I don't survive," he said roughly. "I simply exist until you return." His words broke her. Isolde pulled him to her, and this time when she kissed him, it wasn't tentative or questioning. It was grief and recognition, and something that felt like coming home to a place she'd never known she'd left. Valerian went utterly still, then made a low sound in his throat and kissed her back. It was nothing like she'd imagined. His mouth was cool, his movements controlled, but beneath the restraint, she felt the centuries of longing. He kissed her like she was water and he'd been dying of thirst, like she was salvation and damnation both. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, or at least Isolde was, she saw that his eyes had returned to their normal dark color. The bloodlust had receded. "Did it help?" she asked. "Yes." He touched her face reverently. "But that is not why I'm grateful." "Then why?" "Because for the first time in this life, you kissed me as though you wanted to. Not out of curiosity or obligation." His thumb traced her lower lip. "You kissed me as though you remembered." "I think part of me does," Isolde admitted. "Not everything, not clearly. But when I touched you, when you bit me, it was like something unlocked. A door I didn't know was closed. The bond is forming again." Valerian's expression grew solemn. "Each exchange of blood will strengthen it. But Isolde, you must understand, this is the beginning of your transformation." "Into a vampire?" "Yes." She should have been terrified. Should have pulled away, demanded he reverse it somehow. Instead, she asked, "How many exchanges does it take?" "3. His voice was careful. "3 exchanges of blood, freely given on both sides. After the 3rd, your mortal body will die, and you will wake as I am. And if we stop at 2, you would remain human, but you would have enhanced healing, longer life, some of my strength." He paused. "And we would be bonded. You would feel my emotions, I would feel yours. No secrets, no distance. Would I remember everything? All the past lives? Possibly. The bond sometimes triggers complete recall." His hand tightened on hers. "But Isolde, this is exactly what you refused in every previous life. You always said, 'I'm not them,'" she interrupted. "I'm not Elaine or Catherine or any of the others. I'm me. And I'm choosing differently. You don't know what you're giving up. I know I'm tired of forgetting." Her voice was fierce. "I'm tired of some part of me recognizing you while the rest stays blind. I want to remember, Valerian. I want to know why I loved you. Why I still love you." He froze. "Still?" Isolde realized what she'd said, and she didn't take it back. "Yes," she whispered. "I don't understand it. I've only known you days, but when I look at you, I feel like I've been waiting my entire life for this. For you." Valerian's control shattered. He pulled her against him, burying his face in her hair, and she felt him tremble. "I have dreamed of hearing you say that," he said hoarsely. "In every life, I've waited for the moment you would see me as I see you. And in most lives, it never came. It's here now. For now." He pulled back to meet her eyes. "But Isolde, if we do this, if we complete the bond, there is no going back. You will be tied to me for eternity. If I die, you die. If you regret this choice, you will have centuries to regret it. And if I don't, then you will have centuries to love me." His smile was sad. "Which is all I've ever wanted." Isolde took his hand, pressing it to her heart. "Then let's not waste another moment." The second exchange happened 3 nights later. Valerian had insisted on waiting, giving her time to be certain. But Isolde's resolve never wavered. If anything, it strengthened. She spent the intervening days exploring the castle, reading the journals she'd kept in previous lives, and talking with Valerian late into the night. He told her about the vampire world, the covens and councils, the laws that govern their kind. He explained that their marriage was binding not just in mortal terms, but in vampire law as well. "You are under my protection now," he said. "My blood, my name, my house. Any who harm you will answer to me. Has anyone tried? Not yet. But they will." His expression darkened. "When word spreads that I've taken a mortal bride, there will be those who see you as a weakness, a way to manipulate or hurt me. Then we make sure I'm not mortal much longer." On the 3rd night, Isolde went to Valerian's chambers. She'd never been inside before. They'd always met in neutral spaces, the library, the conservatory, the grounds. But now she pushed open the heavy door and stepped into his private domain. The room was austere, a massive bed that looked unused, bookshelves lining every wall, and in the corner, a single portrait. Isolde approached it slowly. The woman in the painting wore old-fashioned dress, her dark hair loose around her shoulders. Her eyes were familiar, the same shape as Isolde's, though a different color, and her smile was gentle, peaceful. "Elaine," Isolde breathed. "Yes." Valerian appeared behind her. "I commissioned it from memory, decades after she died. It's not perfect, but it's all I had." "She's beautiful." She was. He stood beside her, studying the portrait. "But you are not her. You are Isolde, and you are beautiful in your own right." She turned to face him. "I'm ready." "For the second exchange?" "Yes." Valerian cupped her face gently. "Are you certain? Once we do this, the bond will be nearly complete. Your humanity will begin to slip away." "I'm certain." He searched her eyes for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. "As you wish, my love." This time, when he bit her, there was no pain, only heat and recognition and the overwhelming sense of rightness. And when he offered his wrist in return, she didn't hesitate. She bit down, awkwardly, clumsily, her blunt human teeth barely breaking skin. But Valerian guided her, and his blood filled her mouth. It tasted of power and darkness and something impossibly ancient. And with it came a flood of memory so strong she cried out. She remembered, not everything, not yet, but enough. Enough to know that she had loved this man across lifetimes, that she had chosen him, again and again, in every way that mattered. And enough to know that this time she would choose differently. This time, she would stay. Chapter 8. The Council's Judgment. The summons arrived at midnight, delivered by a pale figure in silver robes who materialized in the great hall like smoke given form. "Lord Valerian Ashford," the messenger intoned, his voice echoing unnaturally. "You are commanded to appear before the Crimson Council within 3 nights' time. Your mortal bride is to accompany you." Valerian's expression went cold and hard as stone. "On what grounds?" "Violation of the covenant." The messenger's eyes flicked to Isolde, who stood frozen on the stairs. "You have begun the transformation of a mortal without council approval. The penalty is dissolution of bond and execution of the initiate." Isolde's blood ran cold. "Execution?" "It is law," the messenger said dispassionately. "A mortal who drinks vampire blood without sanction is an abomination. They must be destroyed before the transformation completes." "She is my wife," Valerian snarled, his voice dropping to something dangerous. "Bound by mortal law and vampire covenant both. The council has no authority." "The council has absolute authority." The messenger smiled thinly. 3 nights, Lord Ashford. Do not be late. The consequences would be unfortunate." He vanished as suddenly as he'd appeared, leaving only the scent of old blood and older magic. Isolde descended the stairs slowly, her mind reeling. "They'll kill me?" "No." Valerian's voice was steel. "They won't. I won't allow it." "Can you stop them?" His silence was answer enough. "Valerian." "The council was formed 5 centuries ago to govern our kind," he said quietly, turning to face her. "They maintain order, enforce laws, prevent exposure to the mortal world. And one of their strictest laws is that transformation must be approved. A mortal cannot simply choose to become vampire. They must be deemed worthy." "And I'm not?" "You weren't evaluated." "I didn't seek permission." His jaw tightened. "I didn't think I needed to. You are my wife, my eternal companion. In the old days, that would have been enough. But not now. The council has grown, rigid, fearful." He moved to the window, staring out at the darkness. 20 years ago, a vampire named Draven transformed his mortal lover without approval. She went mad within weeks, slaughtering an entire village before he could stop her. The council used it as justification to tighten restrictions. Isolde's throat constricted. "Will I go mad?" "No." Valerian turned back to her, his eyes fierce. "You are different. Your soul remembers this existence. You've lived before, loved me before. The transformation will not break you." "But the council doesn't know that?" "No." She crossed to him, taking his cold hands in hers. "Then we tell them. We explain about the past lives, the soul bond. They won't believe it. They'll call it fantasy, delusion." His hands tightened on hers. "And even if they did believe, it wouldn't matter. The law is absolute. Only the council can grant permission for transformation, and they grant it rarely." "Then what do we do?" Valerian was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was heavy with resignation. "We appear before them, and we pray they show mercy." The next 3 nights passed in a blur of preparation. Valerian coached Isolde on council protocol, how to address them, how to stand, what questions they might ask. He warned her that some council members were ancient beyond measure, their humanity long since burned away. "They will try to frighten you," he said, "to make you doubt, to break your resolve. Do not let them. What if they decide against us? Then we fight. Against the entire council? If necessary." His eyes met hers, and in them she saw centuries of determination. "I have lost you 7 times, Isolde. I will not lose you again, not to death, and not to them." On the 3rd night they traveled. The council convened in a fortress deep beneath Prague, in catacombs so old they predated the city above. Valerian led Isolde through passages carved with ancient symbols, past guards whose eyes glowed crimson in the darkness. "Stay close to me," he murmured. "Do not speak unless directly addressed, and do not show fear." I'm terrified. I know, but they must not see it. The council chamber was a vast circular room hewn from black stone. 7 thrones of varying design ringed the space, each occupied by a figure of terrible presence. Isolde's steps faltered as she took them in. The woman on the center throne was impossibly old, her skin like parchment, her eyes milky white. But power radiated from her like heat from a forge. "Lord Valerian Ashford," she said, her voice like wind through dead leaves, "you stand accused of beginning an unauthorized transformation. How do you plead?" "Guilty," Valerian said without hesitation, "but with justification." "There is no justification for violating the covenant. She is my wife. Marriage does not grant you authority to break our laws." The ancient vampire's blind eyes somehow fixed on Isolde. "Come forward, child." Isolde forced herself to move, stepping into the center of the circle. 7 pairs of inhuman eyes studied her, and she felt their attention like weight on her skin. "What is your name?" the Ancient One asked. "Isolde Catherine Greymore Ashford." "And you consented to the blood exchange?" "Yes." "Knowing it would begin your transformation?" "Yes." A murmur ran through the council. "Why?" asked a different voice, male, sharp as broken glass. "What could possibly be worth surrendering your humanity?" Isolde lifted her chin. "Love." "Love," the Ancient One repeated, and there was something like pity in her voice. "Child, love is fleeting. Mortality is a gift you cannot reclaim. Do you truly understand what you've chosen?" "I understand that I have loved this man across 7 lifetimes," Isolde said, her voice steady. "I understand that I have died 7 times, and each time part of me has screamed to remain with him. I understand that this time, this one time, I have the chance to stay." She met the ancient vampire's blind gaze. "So yes, I understand, and I choose him. I choose this." Silence. Then the Ancient One smiled, a terrible, knowing expression. "You have the soul's memory," she said. "I can taste it on you, the echo of past lives." "Yes," Valerian confirmed. "She is reborn. The same soul, returned." "Impossible," one of the other council members snapped. "Reincarnation is myth." "It is not," the Ancient One interrupted. "I am old enough to remember when such things were common. Before magic faded from the world." She leaned forward. "If what you say is true, Lord Ashford, then your bride is not a mortal choosing transformation. She is a soul reclaiming what was once hers." "Exactly." The Ancient One studied them both for a long moment. Then she turned to the other council members. "I call for a vote. Those in favor of allowing the transformation to complete?" 4 hands rose. Those opposed? 2 hands. The Ancient One's hand remained down. The deciding vote. Isolde's heart stopped. "I abstain," the Ancient One said, "which means the motion passes. The transformation may proceed." She fixed Valerian with those terrible blind eyes. "But know this, Lord Ashford. If your bride loses her humanity, if she becomes a threat, the responsibility falls to you. You will be the one to end her. Or we will end you both." "Understood." The Ancient One waved a dismissive hand. "Go. Complete what you've begun. And pray your love is as eternal as you claim." Chapter 9. The third and final exchange. They returned to Ashford Hall in silence, the weight of the council's judgment hanging between them. Isolde should have felt relief. They'd been granted permission. She could complete the transformation without fear of execution. But the Ancient One's words haunted her. "If she loses her humanity, you will be the one to end her." "Could I really go mad?" she asked as they stood in Valerian's chambers. "Like Draven's lover?" "No." Valerian cupped her face gently. She had no preparation, no bond. He transformed her impulsively, and her mortal mind couldn't withstand the sudden influx of power and hunger. His thumb traced her cheekbone. "You are different. You've had 2 exchanges already. Your body is adjusting slowly. And more than that, your soul knows this existence. You've been vampire before, in a sense. Through our bond." "I don't remember being vampire." "Because you never completed the transformation in previous lives. You always refused." His expression grew solemn. "But your soul carries the echo. It will guide you through the change." Isolde leaned into his touch. "When?" "Tonight, if you're ready." "I am." "Isolde, once we do this, there is no return. Your mortal life ends. You will die and be reborn as something other." "I know. You will need blood to survive. You will burn in sunlight. You will watch the mortal world change while you remain frozen." "I know," she repeated. "Valerian, I'm not afraid. Not anymore." He searched her eyes for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Then let us begin." The ritual was simpler than Isolde expected. Valerian prepared the chamber carefully, candles lit, curtains drawn, the bed made with fresh linens. He moved with the quiet efficiency of someone who'd done this before, though he told her he'd never actually transformed another. "I've seen it done," he explained, "centuries ago, when such things were more common. But I've never taken a mortal across the threshold myself." "Are you nervous?" "Terrified." The admission was stark. "If something goes wrong, if I miscalculate the amount of blood, if your body rejects the change, I could lose you permanently. Not just for this life, but forever. The soul cannot be reborn from a failed transformation." Isolde took his hand. "Then we trust each other. And we trust this." She placed his palm over her heart. "Whatever happens, we face it together." Valerian's eyes closed briefly. When they opened, they were crimson. "Together," he agreed. He bit her first. This time, Isolde felt the venom in his fangs, a cold fire that spread through her veins like frost. Her body convulsed, and Valerian held her steady, whispering reassurances as the transformation began. "I've got you," he murmured. "Stay with me, love. Stay with me." The pain was extraordinary. Every nerve, every cell, seemed to be rewriting itself. She felt her heart slow, her breathing become labored. The mortal machinery of her body was shutting down. Dying. She was dying. Panic clawed at her throat, but then Valerian's voice cut through it. "Now, Isolde, drink. Now." He pressed his wrist to her mouth, and she bit down instinctively. His blood flooded her system, and with it came power. It roared through her like wildfire, burning away the pain, the fear, the weakness. She felt her senses explode outward. She could hear the servants moving 3 floors below, could smell the roses in the garden outside, could feel the individual threads of Valerian's shirt beneath her fingers. And the memories. Oh, the memories. They crashed over her in waves. Elaine laughing as Valerian taught her to waltz in a moonlit garden. Catherine, holding his hand as she labored to bring new life into the world, knowing she wouldn't survive. Isabel, praying for forgiveness even as she chose him over her vows. Elena, reading him poetry she'd written about eternal love and its price. Each life, each death, each moment of choosing him. And beneath it all, the original memory. The very first time. "Why aren't you afraid of me?" Valerian had asked, still weak from silver poisoning. "Because," Elaine had answered simply, "I see who you are beneath the monster." "And who is that?" "Someone worthy of saving." Isolde gasped as the vision faded and found herself staring into Valerian's eyes, no longer crimson, but dark as midnight and filled with desperate hope. "Isolde?" His voice was hoarse. "Can you hear me?" "Yes." Her own voice sounded different, clearer, stronger. I remember Valerian. I remember everything. His expression crumpled. Everything? Every life. Every moment. Tears streamed down her face, and she realized dimly that they were tinged pink with blood. Every time I loved you. Every time I lost you. She pulled him down to her. And every time I promised I'd find my way back. Valerian kissed her then, deep and desperate and infinite. And Isolde kissed him back, with 7 lifetimes of longing finally fulfilled. When they broke apart, she realized the pain had faded completely. In its place was strength, power, and a gnawing hunger that made her gasp. The bloodlust, Valerian said quietly. It will be overwhelming at first, but I'll teach you to control it. How long does it take? For most? Years. Decades even. He smiled slightly. But you're not most. You have me, and you have the memories of 7 lifetimes telling you who you are. Who am I? Mine. He pulled her close. As I am yours. Finally, irrevocably yours. Isolde rested her head against his chest and heard nothing. No heartbeat. Because he had no heartbeat to hear. And neither, she realized, did she. She was dead. And reborn. And free. What happens now? She whispered. Now? Valerian's arms tightened around her. Now we have eternity. We can travel, explore, do all the things we never had time for in your mortal lives. He pulled back to meet her eyes. Or we can simply be here, together. No fear of loss, no countdown to goodbye. Together, Isolde agreed, and for the first time in 7 lifetimes, she meant forever. Chapter 10. Eternal, at last. The first dawn after her transformation, Isolde understood what she'd truly given up. She stood before the heavy curtains in Valerian's chambers, her hand hovering near the fabric, feeling the warmth of sunlight beyond. Don't, Valerian said quietly from behind her. I just want to see it one more time. It will burn you. Possibly kill you if you're exposed too long. He moved to stand beside her. The sun is lost to us, Isolde. That is the price of eternity. She let her hand fall. Do you miss it? Every day for the first century. His voice was soft with old grief. Then I stopped remembering what it felt like. The warmth. The light. He took her hand. But I would endure 10,000 years of darkness for 1 year with you. Isolde leaned against him. We have more than a year now. Yes. His arms came around her. We have forever. The adjustment was harder than she'd anticipated. The hunger was constant, a gnawing emptiness that demanded satisfaction. Valerian taught her to feed carefully, only enough to sustain, never enough to kill. They traveled to nearby villages, finding willing donors among those who wouldn't be missed or would forget the encounter. Never children, Valerian instructed, never the innocent, and never out of cruelty. We take what we need to survive, nothing more. And if I lose control? You won't. I'll be with you. His eyes met hers. Always. But it was the memories that proved most difficult. 7 lifetimes worth of experiences crowded Isolde's mind. Different names, different faces, different deaths. Sometimes she woke disoriented, uncertain which life she was living. Was she Elaine the healer? Catherine the merchant's daughter? Elena the poet? You're Isolde, Valerian would remind her gently, grounding her with his presence. My wife. My eternal companion. The others are past. You are present. Slowly, she learned to integrate the memories, to see them as chapters of a single story rather than separate existences. And with that integration came understanding. I refused transformation every time because I was afraid, she told Valerian one evening as they walked the moonlit grounds. Not of becoming vampire, of losing myself. And now? Now I understand that I was losing myself anyway. Every death, every rebirth, I was being erased and remade. She stopped, turning to face him. This way, at least I remain. I remember. I keep growing instead of resetting. Valerian cupped her face tenderly. You are wiser than any version I've known. Because I have all their wisdom. She smiled. All their love. And your own. Yes. She kissed him softly. And my own. 3 months after her transformation, Isolde began to truly understand the scope of eternity. They were in the library, their favorite room, when she looked up from a book and realized this moment could repeat forever. This quiet companionship, this peace, no deadline, no fear of loss. What is it? Valerian asked, noticing her expression. I just realized I'm not afraid anymore. She set the book aside. For 7 lifetimes, there was always the knowledge that I was running out of time, that every moment with you was borrowed, temporary. Her voice grew thick. But now we have all the time in existence. Yes. A blood-tinged tear traced down her cheek. It's overwhelming. Valerian crossed to her, kneeling before her chair. Then we take it slowly, 1 night at a time, 1 year at a time. We don't have to plan centuries. We simply be together. Always together. Isolde pulled him up to kiss her, and for the first time, there was no desperation in it. No urgency born of mortality's deadline. Just love, deep and eternal and sure. The council summoned them once more, 6 months after Isolde's transformation. They stood before the 7 thrones again, but this time Isolde felt no fear. She was one of them now. Vampire, eternal, powerful. The Ancient One studied them with her blind eyes. You have completed the transformation. How fares your bride, Lord Ashford? She is extraordinary, Valerian said quietly. She still possesses her humanity, every shred of it. The Ancient One turned her attention to Isolde. Is this true? Do you retain your mortal heart? I retain my capacity for compassion, Isolde answered carefully. For love, for mercy, for choice. If that is humanity, then yes, I am still human. Just more. A faint smile touched the Ancient One's lips. Well spoken. She leaned back. Then the council acknowledges your transformation as legitimate. You are recognized as Lady Isolde Ashford, vampire of House Ashford, with all rights and protections therein. It was done. She was official, recognized, free. As they left the catacombs, Isolde asked, What happens now? Do we stay at Ashford Hall forever? We can go anywhere you wish, Valerian said. See anything you desire. The world is vast and we have eternity to explore it. But, he smiled slightly. But Ashford Hall is home, and after centuries of wandering, I find I crave stability. Roots. Then we'll make it our sanctuary. Isolde laced her fingers through his. We'll fill it with books and music and art. We'll host other vampires. Share our story. Make it a place of hope instead of shadow. You want to give other immortals hope? I want them to see what we have. That eternity doesn't have to be lonely. Her eyes met his. That love can endure, even across death. Valerian stopped walking, pulling her into his arms. I love you. In every life, in every form, in every moment. I love you. I know. She smiled against his lips. I remember. And she did. All of it. Every lifetime. Every choice. Every moment that had led them here. To this. To forever. Chapter 11. Love Beyond Mortality. 10 years later, Isolde stood in the garden at midnight, surrounded by night-blooming roses that perfumed the air with their heavy sweetness. She'd planted them herself, learning that even immortal hands could nurture life. You're thinking loudly, Valerian said, materializing beside her with the silence that still sometimes startled her. Just reflecting. She turned to him, studying his face. Unchanged, eternal, beloved. Do you know what day it is? The anniversary of your transformation. 10 years. She shook her head in wonder. It feels like both an eternity and a moment. That is the nature of immortal time. It compresses and expands simultaneously. He took her hand. Are there regrets? None. The answer came without hesitation. You? Only that I didn't find a way to keep you sooner. His smile was self-deprecating. I wasted so many lifetimes in fear and restraint. You were protecting me. I was protecting myself from the pain of your refusal. He drew her close. But you chose differently this time, and I am grateful for your courage. Isolde rested her head against his chest, listening to the silence where a heartbeat should be. She'd grown to love that silence. It meant he was real, present, hers. We should travel, she said suddenly. See the world. You've told me about Venice, Tokyo, the Amazon. I want to experience them with you. Then we will. Valerian kissed the top of her head. We have all the time in existence to see everything. They started with Prague, the city where the council convened, now seen through her vampire senses. Isolde walked the ancient streets, marveling at the layers of history she could now perceive, blood spilled centuries ago, still faintly scenting the stones, vampires moving among humans, invisible to mortal eyes but clear to hers. There are so many of us, she breathed. More than humans realize. We've always walked among them. Valerian guided her through the crowds. But we're careful. The moment humanity loses its fear of us is the moment we become vulnerable. Do you ever wish things were different? That you could be mortal again? He stopped, turning to face her. Not for a single second, because mortality would mean losing you again. And I have done that enough for 10 lifetimes. They traveled to Italy next. Venice at night was a dream of water and shadow, and Valerian showed her the palazzo where he'd lived in the 1600s. I was lonely then, he admitted as they stood on a balcony overlooking the canal. You had been dead for 30 years, and I hadn't yet felt your soul's return. I thought perhaps the cycle had broken, that you were truly gone. But I came back. You always do. He pulled her into his arms. You are as inevitable as the tide. In Tokyo, they walked through neon-lit streets where ancient temples stood beside modern towers. Isolde marveled at how the city embraced both past and future simultaneously. Like us, Valerian observed, ancient and eternal, yet constantly evolving. They fed in the crowds, taking only sips from willing donors who would forget the encounter. Isolde had mastered the control necessary to remain hidden, to be predator without being monster. You're a natural, Valerian told her one evening, 7 lifetimes of accumulated wisdom perhaps, or simply your innate compassion. Both, she decided. I remember being human. I remember vulnerability. It makes me careful. After a year of travel, they returned to Ashford Hall. The castle felt different now. Less mausoleum, more home. Isolde had made changes. Opened the curtains in rooms that didn't face east. Filled vases with fresh flowers. Invited other vampires to visit and stay. You've transformed this place, Valerian said, watching her arrange books in the library. No, I just let the light in. She smiled at him. Metaphorically speaking, it's more than I managed in centuries. Because you were waiting. She crossed to him. Waiting for me. For this. For the life we were meant to build together. He pulled her close. And now that you're here, now that we have eternity, now we live it. She kissed him softly. We fill these halls with love and laughter. We help other vampires find their way. We become what we were always meant to be. Which is proof that love survives, that it's stronger than death. than time, than any curse or magic. Her eyes met his. We become legend, Valerian, the vampire lord and his eternal bride, the love that conquered mortality itself. His smile was radiant. Then let us be legendary. 20 years after her transformation, Isolde stood once more before the council, but this time she wasn't a suppliant, she was an equal. Lady Isolde, the Ancient One greeted, you've requested an audience. I wish to propose a change to the covenant, Isolde said firmly. The restriction on transformation is too rigid. There are mortals who could thrive as vampires, who deserve the choice. And if they go mad? If they become threats? Then their sires are responsible, as my husband was willing to be responsible for me. She stepped forward, but denying the possibility of eternity to those who are ready, who understand the cost and still choose it. That's cruelty, not protection. The council members murmured among themselves. The Ancient One studied Isolde for a long moment. You speak from experience. I speak from 7 lifetimes of dying when I should have been allowed to stay. Isolde's voice was steady. I speak for all the mortals who love vampires, who are bonded to them, who deserve more than a handful of years before being ripped away. Silence. Then the Ancient One smiled, truly smiled, for the first time Isolde had witnessed. Motion to revise the transformation restrictions. We will consider your proposal. She gestured dismissal. You have given us much to contemplate, Lady Ashford. As they left, Valerian took her hand. You were magnificent. I was honest. Isolde squeezed his fingers. If my 7 deaths can prevent others from suffering the same loss, then they meant something. They taught me something. They taught you that love is worth fighting for. Yes. She stopped, pulling him into a kiss that held 20 years of devotion and an eternity of promise. And I'll spend forever proving it. Valerian rested his forehead against hers. Forever seems insufficient for how much I love you. Then we'll make it enough. Isolde smiled. Together. Always together. And in the darkness of the Prague catacombs, 2 immortal souls stood entwined, proof that love, true love, transcends every boundary mortality dares to impose.